Welcome to Newsbreak Talk. I'm Shanell Daniel, standing in for Taresh Hariprasad this weekend. I'm certainly looking forward to spending the next hour with you, bringing you the latest in cutting-edge current affairs. And today, we'll be unpacking a report by the Center for Analytics and Behavioral Change. The report is titled "The State of Child Predation on South African Social Media," and it was released recently, certainly raising alarm bells when it comes to child safety on social media. Now, the report examines online child and teenage predation in the country for the period, or rather from the period of June 1st, 2024 to May 31st, 2025. Now, it sought to understand perspectives about dating and age-related patterns, teenage pregnancy and intergenerational dating, as well as the perpetuation of child pornography, child fantasy, and also content sexualizing minor children on social media. Now, much to discuss regarding this on the table today, but I'd definitely be failing if I did not mention the term used in this particular report regarding how young girls are perceived by predators, and that term is "after 12 is lunch." I'll say that again. The term is "after 12 is lunch." Now, some of you may already know what this term refers to, but for those, like many people who I have engaged with during the week leading up to this show, the term is not something everyone knows about. And just to briefly explain, after 12 is lunch. This term indicates that there are some predators who are willing to have sexual relations with a girl once she passes the age of 12 years old. Yes. Now, in fact, the expression assumes that a 12-year-old girl is sexually mature and available, and this is especially so if the girl's physical development is more noticeable. So definitely something that needs to sink in, I would think, and of course, with such startling revelation in this report, I had to speak to those on the front lines, fighting to protect children. And definitely would want to hear from you as well as the conversation develops. But for now, I think, having spoken to my guests, leading up to this show, a common sentiment was, it starts at home. Protecting a child from sexualization on social media predators starts at home. And that's the view of General Manager of the Tears Training Academy, Celeste Louw. Now, she was reacting to the state of child predation on South African social media. This report released recently by the Center for Analytics and Behavioral Change. And she says predatory behavior towards minors is being normalized online, and parents need to intervene immediately.
So I think, we can have an academic conversation, but for me, more as in all my roles. So as well as being an educator and an activist, I'm a grandmother and a mother. And I think that because I'm an activist, it wasn't as shocking to me because I already had seen that. But I think the thing about it is it's so pervasive, right? And when you look at it, you can look at the popular culture, movies, music, look at clothes that are in the shops for children. Look at how in all areas of life children are being sexualized. And I think there we have to look at, what are we looking at with the accountability of parents and what's going on in homes and what is considered moral standards and what is considered acceptable behavior.
It seemed as if in society there's a normalization when it comes to the sexualization of children in society. And I see that according to the report, perpetrators were more likely to deny their acts as harmful and immoral, and in some cases perceived themselves as victims who were corrupted into the act by maybe the child, or that they maybe lost control. What are your thoughts on this entitlement to sex, and is it a recurring theme where certain perpetrators believe that women or young girls are to tend to men's sexual desires as and when they want?
I think there is that perception from perpetrators, and they use it as an excuse, but let's just be honest here. Children don't corrupt adults. Adults and society corrupt children. So using something like loss of control, or, that's what girls are for type of thing, as an excuse for immediate gratification is actually just weak. And they're using that because they know that what they're doing is unacceptable behavior. But for instance, the talk that's in that report, so that social media posts that are in that report, people are saying things like after 12 is lunch, whatever. If we as adults, every single adult, are not saying, hey, that's not okay, if we are just being silent rather than speaking up and calling out that behavior, then what's going to happen is people become desensitized to it, and it becomes the norm.
On that point of after 12 is lunch, when doing my research and just, speaking to some of my colleagues about this report, it was so shocking to so many that a child can be considered sexually available at the age of 12 and be deemed, or the term being deemed, lunch is after 12. On that note, statutory rape, teenage pregnancy, and the grooming of minor children continues unabated in the country. There's so many statistics. In 2010 and 2011, 4.13% of the total offences on children reported to the police consisted of rape, while sexual assault accounted for 6.9% in 2022-2023. And really the list goes on. But I wonder, from your perspective, working so close on the ground with victims, how then do we navigate this issue in the country? Because it really seems to be, ripping through society and affecting children who one day grow up into being adults that might think that this is normal, or there's no one really to help them.
100%. So I think we need to start right at the beginning. How do we educate our children? So we've been talking years, when you've got a boy child, got a girl child, you teach them their body parts by the right name. If you don't use euphemisms, you don't teach your child that. You need to teach children from very young about body autonomy. And it doesn't have to be ugly, and it doesn't have to be difficult. It can be age appropriate. And then from there we can work. So I think the very first thing is what's happening in our home. How are we parenting? Are we helping people to parent openly with courageous conversation, and then only after that can we start talking about retroactive things, because policing, justice, it's all retroactive. So as Cheers Foundation, we actually have an educational program for children, and, age appropriately for children, that parents can also go watch, called Speak Up. And there we talk about all the questions that children don't want to ask their parents, or all the questions parents don't want to talk to their children about. And hopefully by encouraging that on our Speak Up program, which you can access by dialing *134 *7355#, and it's all completely free and it's data free to watch. Hopefully by having those conversations with our children and encouraging our children from very young what is okay and what isn't, and what is acceptable and what isn't, that is where the real change is going to happen. That's how I feel, because all of this other stuff is after the fact. But if you are on social media and you're seeing posts like that, you should report them. Don't be quiet.
And, you're talking about the facilities or the programs that are available, but do you find that adults, parents, do they make use of these resources?
So actually, surprisingly, we do get parents that are looking at our Speak Up program. And from their feedback, they find it really useful because a lot of the times there's the generation gap, right? And so we have topics like pregnancy, STIs, what to do if you're raped, what to do, what grooming is, all of those kind of things. And a lot of parents aren't educated in that. And so we find with the longer videos, we have a lot of parents watching. So I do think that there is an awakening to you have to do something. Like you have to, as a grandmother, I can tell you, we watch the grandchildren, and when my children were growing up, we watch what they're doing on social media. We limit them to things that are age appropriate. For instance, you wouldn't let a 7-year-old be on a game that's on Discord when you know that Discord is a predatory place. A lot about how are we adapting to the online social media environment and how are we protecting our children. And that starts at home, right?
And that was TS Training Academy General Manager Celeste Louw, just, talking to us about, the state of child predation on South African social media. I think some key points coming out of that conversation with her was social media, talking about the types of posts that are made. There's different sides of the conversation, of course. Some would say, certain types of clothing shouldn't be worn by youngsters, but then others would argue it doesn't matter what a child wears. There are predators out there who are still targeting young girls that are maybe dressed age appropriately. Children are being sexualized in many ways on social media, according to the Center for Analytics and Behavioral Change. And Celeste also, they're talking about accountability for parents and the fact that she says children don't corrupt adults, adults corrupt children. And, safety of children definitely being highlighted there when it comes to social media. Who protects the child? Who educates the child? Who educates the parent? And I managed to also speak with Director of Childline KwaZulu-Natal, Predation Naika, regarding the findings of the report. And she says children's safety is at great risk on social media and that these violations need to be tackled head on.
This is deeply alarming and constitutes a serious form of sexual exploitation and abuse. This also puts children's safety and mental well-being at severe risk and encourages grooming, trafficking, and predator networks. Very important to note is it is a criminal offense and violates both national and international child protection laws.
Adeshni, based on the fact that Childline engages with children who find themselves in compromising situations, is the predation of minor children common?
Yes, Childline frequently encounters cases involving minors, making it a disturbingly common issue. Many children report being approached or groomed by predators, often through social media, chat apps, and gaming platforms. Some are manipulated into sharing content or meeting adults in person, placing them at serious risk.
And what would you say makes children vulnerable? Is it family environment, social media exposure? What are your thoughts on that?
Children are most vulnerable when exposed to a combination of unstable family environments and unmonitored social media use. A lack of support or supervision at home, together with constant online access, creates ideal conditions for predators to exploit emotional needs and gain trust.
Nearly 8,000 teen pregnancies in eThekwini, a staggering 7,627 girls aged between 10 to 14 years old gave birth in eThekwini from April 2024 to April 2025, with the youngest mother just being 10 years old. Now, according to data presented at the Durban ICC Teenage Pregnancy Indaba, Deputy Mayor Zandile Myeni called it a public health crisis, noting 154 births amongst girls aged 10 to 14 and 582 monthly abortion seekers. Adding to this, the report noted that the government and law enforcement do not treat teenage pregnancy and statutory rape seriously enough. What does an organization like Childline do when dealing with such horrendous stories from the mouths of children? Is reporting an option for these victims?
At Childline, we take cases of teenage pregnancy and statutory rape very seriously. We offer immediate support, counseling, and education to affected children. We also help them understand their rights and, where appropriate, assist in reporting abuse. Reporting is always an option, and children are supported throughout this process. Reporting can be done via the Childline Helpline 116. This is a toll-free number and available 24/7.
And that was the director of Childline KwaZulu-Natal, Adeshni Naik, just discussing the options available for young people, for children who are experiencing sexualization, especially on social media. They, of course, do a lot of work in the community regarding this. And as I mentioned, we are discussing today and unpacking a report by the Center for Analytics and Behavioral Change titled The State of Child Predation on South African Social Media. A lot of statistics, have come through. The term after 12 is lunch, suggesting that there are predators who seek out young girls, as early as the age of 12 for sexual gain. Something very alarming, and I do see a lot of messages and voice notes coming through on the program, and I definitely want to hear from you. What do you think about this, the sexualization of young girls and them being sought out on social media, something that one would think a child uses maybe, for recreational purposes or entertainment. But there are certain accounts on social media that really do aim or are created, to target young girls, and some would argue as well on young boys as well. So share your voice notes with me, share your opinions with me on Newsbreak Talk this afternoon, 071-613-7803. When we come back, we will also be getting an expert opinion, really, not just on what government or civil society can do about this, but really at home, what can be done to protect a child from social media predators, and what parents or caregivers and even a child can do in order to stay safe. Stay tuned.
Twice as long.